Taoists were very aware that life unfolds in a constant movement between opposites, between high and low, light and dark,
Yes.
yin and yang. There isn't much we can do about it, and the most efficient way of living is simply moving along with the waves of existence. The flow of life and its transformations are inevitable. Yet we see so many people cling to their circumstances. In the metaphor of the river stream, they hold on tightly to a branch or a rock, afraid to let go, because they want complete control over their position. They simply don't trust the universe.
So true, man.
And the consequence of this is a rigid lifestyle.
All right, this is an episode that's been long overdue, something I want to talk to you about a lot, and this is about the art of surrender, letting go.
Oh, excellent.
Are you prepared to learn about surrender?
I am, and it's something I could definitely stand to learn more about. So yes.
Yeah, I find it hard to drop my guard. You know, I've been
Oh,
around
me
for a
too.
while. I've gotten beat up and won some things, failed a little bit, but
Yeah.
my guard is up.
Our civilization is in a state of ongoing strivings, in which control seems to be the highest virtue. We don't have to look far to observe this. In the workplace, for example, employees are more and more controlled and supervised.
True.
Especially now we have the technology to do so. And governments put more effort into tracking their citizens, whether it's through camera supervision or the proposal of a so-called social credit system. Ironically, the latter is a Chinese
Looking at you,
invention
China.
that goes utterly against the flow.
Yeah, that's crazy. That I hear a lot about that. I'd like to get more into that, but it would get me out of this surrender state because you just realize how
Right.
more surveillance there truly is. You know?
Right.
philosophy that emerged from the same soil. Taoism.
Yeah.
As opposed to a control-obsessed society, Taoism revolves around letting go and going with the flow. At first glance, the act of letting go may seem a form of weakness, but according to the Taoists, by a
Yes.
correct understanding of how the universe works, we can approach life more intelligently.
I think I do blame it a little bit on me growing up in the West and specifically America. You know, we don't
I
really
agree.
get this type of philosophy early. You know.
No, we don't. We're often told if you don't strive, and I mean, there's some truth, right? But if you don't strive at all, you're nothing. You're only as good as your, latest trade. Is something I've heard a lot.
I
in
wonder,
terms of,
is
trading.
capitalism
Yeah.
is capitalism Taoism's friend? Because I don't think it is. I think they are more
Interesting.
opposites than they are alike.
It's
Capitalism
an
is
interesting point.
Yeah, capitalism versus Taoism.
I think it could be a friend, but
Could be if you're
it's
if you're higher
hard
up.
to-
If you're more
Yeah.
in management and a leadership position,
Hey,
surely.
Hey, good point, man.
You
That
know?
sounds pretty good.
That's
Touche.
true.
more
Yeah, well said.
efficiently and go with the flow rather than swimming against it. Therefore, the power of letting go is a form of strength that's based on sophistication rather than force.
I have to say real quick, this video seems fantastic. I have recently in the past couple years learned to let go in a pretty cool way. That's when I ride my electric bike and I listen to music that I know and I've heard the songs
Nice.
many times over and I know everything about them. And then I time that with the bike and that gives me some sort of like nice clarity. And they could be a 45-minute bike ride and it feels like a 6-hour adventure. It's kind of cool, you know?
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah. I like that. That's a great way to sort of get into that space. I think that's
because
brilliant.
the time does change when you're really dialed into your athletic thing you're doing, running. It can be many different things, right? Playing pool or something like that. You can really start.
It's true.
You can start
It's
to get
true. Yeah. Well said.
The Tao Te Ching, the main Taoist scripture, was written by a mysterious sage named Lao Tzu. There are countless
Big
ways
fan.
in which we can interpret this text. One way is to see it as a guide for a ruler. What characterizes the passages of the Tao Te Ching regarding governance is that Lao Tzu puts emphasis on ruling by not ruling, as he compared governing a country with frying a small fish. Too much
that's my
poking
favorite
spoils the meat. He argued that when a ruler tightens his grip on the people, all kinds of negative side effects will occur. We see that people become distrustful towards one another when the government is too patronizing. And when it's too intrusive, people become rebellious. But when a leader is unobtrusive and acts with integrity, then people will become whole, as they are granted the space to naturally evolve. It's clear that Lao Tzu favors a passive form of governance, which doesn't just apply to ruling a state, but also to the governance of ourselves. Because letting things go is the key to let nature do the work, which applies to any level. In this video, I would like to show you several ways in which Taoism shows us the power of letting go.
Okay.
The first one is the art of non-doing.
It's just so strange because like if I did this with the way my mother and father were, it was like you need to make money, you got to pay for things, you got to buy gas, you got to pay your car insurance, like young.
Right.
And this non-doing thing to them was just like you're useless. You don't do anything. It's like, you know?
It's true. I'm certainly not an expert, but I could say like, and you know, I'm not sure if this is what it means, but it took me a while to get like, it's not about shirking my responsibility. I can take care of the things I need to take care of in life, like pay my bills and make sure, you know, I'm living a good enough life. I can keep the bill collectors at bay at least, and still be fulfilled, but without stressing like a madman about it to the point of, oh my goodness, I'm not making enough, or, you know, hey, I'm not the next, I don't know, Mark Zuckerberg or Jeff Bezos.
That's true. My perspective is like when you're a teenage kid though, and you're just emerging into the world and you're trying to be, that's like so difficult. I mean, you weren't operating at 22 the way you operate now. It'd be great if you did. Everybody, but it's like even if you have no direction, it's like you're lost.
You're
in
right.
America. They're just like, oh, and then this stupid stereotype of make $100,000 and be 6'2" and stuff like that, and like,
the
so
triple.
much.
What is it? The triple six. You're 6 feet tall. You make a six-figure salary, and you have what is it? Six-pack abs. Oh, and a V6 car. I can't remember
It all sounds cruel and
you're
malicious.
Not good enough unless you do those things and have those things.
That cruel, malicious sentiment that comes from the society and less from people's mouths, but yet somehow still exists in everybody's mind. Right?
Somehow it's in there. Right?
Yeah, and it's a mean judging sentences, and they're mean. So the non-doing part seems to hear like you're lazy. So let's see how they spin it.
Yeah.
The Taoist concept of Wu Wei can be explained as effortless action, or the so-called flow state, but also as non-doing, or knowing when to act and when not to. When we take a critical look at ourselves, we see that the need for control prevails in many areas of life. We feel the need to control our pets, our children, our gardens, our video games, in some cases our partners, and first and foremost, our future. Now, control isn't always a bad thing. In order to survive, we need to exert our influence on the environment to some extent. Especially self-control can lead us in a positive direction. Without control, human civilization would probably never have occurred. But too much of it doesn't get us anywhere. It seems that we systematically underrate the natural influences that lie at the basis of our daily lives. We can't control everything, and many things happen when we stop controlling them. Let's take a tree for example. We can plant it, we can water it, we can add some fertilizer and make sure it's exposed to enough sunlight. But any more intervention would only damage the process, because we interrupt nature from doing its job. Another example is attraction. The first step to attracting someone is simply showing ourselves, so that the person...
Showing yourselves, I guess that's true, right? Showing yourself is such a way to get attention.
It is actually. There's you know, I know there's some advice out there, and if you do it right, there's a wrong way to do it, I guess, anything, but you show yourself in an interesting way, like particularly if you're doing something interesting or something you like.
Yeah.
And you're happy doing it, people will see that and they're like, oh, they're more inclined to
why does it come to mind? Like, you ever watch those Lifetime movies where there's those really attractive middle-aged men who are working in a garden, right? And like,
that's exactly what I was thinking about.
She hasn't met him yet, but she sees like his ripped forearms and the way his hands are dirty, but he's got like he's got a beard, and then he meets her and he's like, nice to meet you. I got to go somewhere and do some work. And she's just like, oh, Who is this man?
She's very intrigued.
Yeah.
You're right. It's like those Lifetime or those Hallmark romantic movies. She comes from the city she doesn't want to leave her high-end job in the city, but she has to help grandma with the Christmas tree farm. And of course,
Always.
they're very, hunky neighbor out there. And he's a great looking guy always.
Of course he
5
is.
o'clock shadow.
Right.
Perfectly coiffed all the time.
He's showing himself.
And he's showing himself, right? He's out there and he's just doing his thing on
Right,
his
exactly.
mission.
He's showing himself doing what he naturally does.
Yeah, it's his natural thing. He's not trying hard, right?
She's so happening to observe him as he's naturally doing the thing he's good at.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
That's sort of true.
And he's not. It's interesting because at first, we've all seen these. Right? He's kind of he's a bit ignoring her, or he's sort of just
he's busy.
Passive towards
he's
her.
working.
He's busy. He's doing stuff, right?
Yeah.
She's intrigued by a man on his mission, and then maybe they'll talk, and then he'll realize he likes her, and then they'll have
obviously it's going to be a short conversation because then he would overexpose and be less mysterious.
That's right. Well said, sir.
This can all go back to showing yourself, right? I guess if you show yourself as you were, I think that's why people at work get crushes on people a lot, because they see them being busy and doing things that aren't casual. They're seeing them do professional things.
Yeah,
right?
It's true.
And executing them, and they might not even get to talk to that person for some time, but they see them in the boardroom.
Yeah,
they see them, but they don't know them. So that's cool.
Right. And often the people look good at work, right? And and they might be just doing something they're good at. They're not over trying. So it's more.
Or they have the experience. They've been there a while.
Or they just have the experience. Yeah.
All right, let's see.
The person we want to attract knows that we exist.
That got me though, to show yourself. I'm like, that really is kind of
so
what people.
True, man. Yeah.
Then attraction either happens or not. Yep. When attraction is there, one can easily blow it by taking too much action. Attraction is a natural phenomenon that is beyond our control. It absolutely cannot be
Sounds like me when I used to go to the bar, and I was not trying to press up on anybody. But I'll talk to you. I'll be back here next Friday. I'll see you then.
Forced. Instead, it has to grow or
just being
erupt
friendly was
spontaneously.
Good enough in some respects.
Man, as if it's not cute enough, there's a puppy in between them.
There's only one way to let the seed of attraction grow into a beautiful tree, which is not intervening, aside from the occasional watering. Silence makes the heart grow fonder.
Don't overdo
That's why letting go is vital in relationships.
Yeah, that's
because
true.
by letting go, we give space.
That's so true.
Emotionally, it's great. It's great advice. If it's an emotional attachment.
It is.
Yeah. It is. Because it's going to happen regardless, so you might as well do it sooner rather than later.
To the forces of the universe to unfold. After a fight, for example, anger naturally erodes. And when trust is breached, one cannot enforce restoration. It has to grow back naturally. So letting go makes the difference between controlling and allowing. The second
That's good. That's very good advice.
What they say, if you love something, let it go. If it comes back to you, it's yours.
You just read my mind. It's like you read my mind through the internet.
Change.
Exactly.
That's the DMX's first album I really like, and he would say that a lot. And if you love something, let it go. If it comes back to you, it's yours. I used to hear that.
There you
all
go,
the
man.
time.
DMX, words of wisdom.
They see life passing them by, including many opportunities for positive change, and they miss out on a lot of fun. As Lao Tzu wrote in the Tao Te Ching, and I quote, "The living are soft and yielding, the dead are rigid and stiff. Living plants are flexible and tender, the dead are brittle and dry."
Brittle and dry.
There are also those who swim against the stream. They are the biggest energy wasters of them all. Perhaps they see honor and virtue in taking an extremely non-agreeable stance in life, but exercising a constant resistance to how the universe unfolds isn't a...
It's masochism is sort of like this.
Yeah, in a way, you're right. It's like, part of me, in a joking way, I was like, vive la résistance, But yeah, there's because I've been guilty of this in some respects. Like, I'm going to fight the good fight, in a way, in my own way. But it turns out it wasn't very efficient. I burn all these resources and, brain cells and emotions on things.
I'm going to share something kind of interesting, okay? I'll try to keep it brief. So,
go for it.
I would do a lot of isolation as a teenager because I guess I didn't feel powerful in my role. I wasn't executing super well. My future wasn't crystal clear. A lot of pressures, a lot of inferiority, complex stuff,
Yeah.
right? So I would go play video games, and I would always play these games where I was powerful and you're the chosen one. You obviously know this story. They do it in anime constantly.
Oh yeah.
Started
Your
to play.
destiny starts to unfold. Yeah.
Yeah,
as you-
or the weakest one becomes the strongest one. The
Yeah.
goofy one becomes the
Yes.
strongest. I played this scenario a lot in my life, virtually, mentally.
Me too.
I think
Me
it
too.
actually changes kind of my reality. I would say I don't think people 100 years ago were going in rooms by themselves and going on adventures as much as I have gone, and I.
Right.
See so many of these archetypes and situations in these games, like in Final Fantasy, when there's like
yeah.
resurrection and rejuvenation and like all these types of things have been in my life my whole life. And it's always like they talk always about the light beings and the gods and the good ones and the bad ones, and it's like I have such a worldview that is, I think, unprecedented. I played video games for 40 years. I've had so many adventures. I've had so many experiences that are, I think, probably pretty unique, right, to modern humans.
That's very cool. Yeah, they are certainly unique to or special to humanity. Definitely unique because you're the one who had them, right?
Yeah,
It's special
exactly.
to humanity in general.
Yeah.
Who, in the last, say, 250,000 years, give or take, of humanity, you could be in a room and in your mind go on this journey.
Yeah.
With say through a video game, or in my case, also through somewhat video games, through anime, even through traveling.
So true.
Who
And
does that, though?
this might be a bit outside the box,
cool.
but hear me out on this. I've isolated. I've spent a lot of time alone in a room where it's just me and you're with your thoughts and it's just you. So therefore, my reality for those 5-6 hours was just me and it. And it's almost like the whole world doesn't exist. It's not like it's even there.
It's wild how that works, right? You almost for that time period you do. It's kind of meditative in a way, right? I imagine.
Yeah.
The rest of the world sort of melts away, and of course it's still actually there, but as far as you're concerned in your mind, you're so focused in that moment that it's sort of a the rest is just sort of going on. It doesn't matter,
And
cool.
You're experiencing a lot of stuff. Some of these games really have a whole lot of things involved in them, and a lot of the newer ones are more like resurrecting and trying again. And you will fail, you lose, you have to go through this, and I think it perpetuates the not wanting to let go, because it brings more of a warrior mentality, more of a rise again,
I could see that.
Win the day. And I think, as I say it out loud, I think that's also my issue with letting go, is because I would basically retreat and hide with my isolation, but I would still remain powerful and stronger than ever while I was in that isolation. And then I would return back to the real world, and then, you know what I mean? Like it's interesting. It's different.
Yeah, it's hard to get. Taoism strikes me as a system that, I mean, what little I know of it, deals with balance, and it's hard to strike that balance because if you look at that yin and yang symbol, the line is kind of curved between light and dark, let's say, or red and blue, depending on what, and it's curved because the idea is it's ever moving. So reality is always changing and things are ever moving, and so it's like you strike a balance. I got it. You want to hold on, but then the world changes. Something changes, and you can't just control that. You have to kind of change with it and try to stay in that orderly, creative state. Yeah, it's hard to.
You're completely right. And and now I look back in the isolation. It's a hard word to say sometimes. And when you hear about the yin and yang, and you look at a lot of these cultures, they were outside all the time with the plants, with the trees. And I'm having a digital experience with this, and it seems that it's also extremely valuable to get the real world experience, to feel the wind on your face, feel the grass in between your toes. And for a long time I didn't do that. I wasn't that person, and I do it a lot more now, and I do genuinely love it. You feel the most alive sometimes when you walk outside and you're like, oh, it is a nice day today, and
it's
you're like,
true.
I don't know,
it's
man.
So true.
So
like when I feel nature, I feel the same way when I'm outside. When I was younger, I didn't partake in nature as much. Now I definitely feel it with my allergies, but I I've come to appreciate just the beauty that nature has, all the seasons we
Yeah.
have.
Although
The
as a
climate with four
kid,
seasons.
As a kid, when I was younger, 7, 8, 9, 11, I would go in the woods like every day and go hang out in the
Oh yeah,
woods. I
yeah.
was a woods
You s-
kid, so
yeah,
I do
that's
have
cool.
some of it. I do. I wasn't always like that,
Sure.
you know. Now I try to
Yeah.
be both.
Very
I remember
efficient
playing with
way to
my
live.
with my
And most
cousins. We'd
likely
play games in the forest and the tree lines and
Yes, that's
in
cool
the
you did
fields
that.
and backyards. Yeah, we were outside a lot.
Some
Yeah.
people didn't do that growing up.
makes one worn out and miserable.
Yeah.
This non-acceptance of how things are is also the cause of people fighting against themselves. Because of
Oh,
certain
yes,
societal
yes.
expectations,
Guilty
people
as
engage
charged.
in a battle against their inherent nature. Instead of flowing along with the attributes that nature has given them, we could say, follow your strength, instead of trying to repair your weakness.
Follow your
Embracing
strength.
change also
That's a good
applies to
one.
uselessness and usefulness. Taoist philosopher Zhuangzi observed that usefulness depends on the circumstances, as he told about a merchant that tried to sell shirts to a tribe whose members were covered in tattoos and always showed them off by walking around shirtless. To them, shirts are useless, but to us, at least most of us, they aren't useless at all. Usefulness and uselessness are relative and are not to be treated with rigidity. When you live in New York, for example, having a car is less useful than when you live somewhere in the
Yeah.
countryside where the next village is
that's
50
true.
kilometers away.
Yeah.
So we
That's
ought to be willing to let go of things
true.
that are
Yeah.
useless in one situation and adopt what's useful instead. That's
Right.
how we make change an ally and
Well,
not
Environmental
Excellent.
changes, you know.
Yeah, yeah. Changing circumstances. What you with beliefs too. What served you for a while, it might have done very well for you mentally, emotionally, even spiritually. But at some point, it starts hindering your growth. Maybe it gets in the way for whatever reason. And it's so hard. I know for me, it's hard to let that old belief go. It's just not serving me anymore. It's like a car. Am I going to sit in a car that broke down on the side of the road and say, yes, you can still work? I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, maybe I could repair it, but
Not at that moment when you're broken down. Your
maybe
car don't move.
you're right. Not at that moment when I'm broken down. I might need help repairing the car, right? I
Yeah.
might need a new car. Am I gonna? Yeah, it's like the car is like the belief. It served me well for the time it served me. Thank you, car. But maybe it's time to let go.
So I have
Yeah.
another part to share after seeing that. So I was talking about
Yeah.
the digital, kind of, after work I'd go home, play some games, and I'd go play Dark Souls and feel strong and play
Yeah.
Tekken and be competitive.
Mhm.
So nowadays, as you're saying, how the car scenario you were just saying, I
Yeah.
find that games are actually a waste of time, and I go through the cutscenes immediately. I don't want to waste the time watching the cutscene. As when I
Oh,
was a
that's funny.
kid, I was way more into the cutscene. The game
Yeah.
settings, I make them super easy instead of hard now because I just want to use it for 15 to 20 minutes as an experience, as before I was using it as an actual like
Oh, I got you.
super experience. Because now, as you know from this show and producing this show, I become more spiritual. I become more curious, and I can collaborate with you. And I find that this is a nice kind of change that I think was necessary for me, because the old stuff was getting redundant and boring. How many times do you want to
Right.
be Luke
Right.
Skywalker, right? And win the day that way,
Yeah.
that scenario.
Yeah.
You understand
It's
it.
so
I get
true.
it. I understand the tropes. I love it. I could like make it. I can understand. I can tell that story to younger people and be good at it because I understand
Yeah.
it. But now
Uh-huh.
I believe it's more in what's inside of me. What's in is what I'm really trying to work on, and which will help
Yeah.
me love other people and be more accepting of the things I cannot control, such as my
I like that,
my
man.
finite experience.
That's very cool. That's a great way to look at it. That's a great story. I really appreciate you sharing that.
Thank you.
because
I was nice to say it on
really is-
camera because I've thought about that, but I've never actually said all
Yeah.
that out loud before.
It's a really great story because everyone's journey to varying degrees. I think they pick your journey, right? Everyone's unique. Kind of I hope follows a similar path where they find different things that lead them on towards their better well-being
Yeah.
as they go through life.
I guess for me,
That's
it
wonderful.
was experience as many things. I don't know. Like when I would play the games
Yeah.
before, like them open world games, I would stop and I would go on the highest mountain and I would look all around the camera and I would imagine like what it would be like to stand on top of a
Oh
mountain.
yeah.
And those are things that you couldn't do before. You had to go climb a mountain to at least halfway,
true.
you know, to get the same experience.
One game I played once is pretty. It was actually a couple of years ago. It was during the pandemic, the COVID-19 pandemic, and I got the lady I was living with at the time. We had the Oculus 2, I think.
cool.
So it was like that VR headset.
Yeah, what'd you play?
And it was the International Space Station simulator, right? It was
wow.
something really kind of simple, but you'd put the the headset on and you'd float, and you basically like an astronaut would at the ISS, and you could
Wow.
even do spacewalks and stuff. You have to go out the hatch. And I have to admit, like I started getting pretty into it, but I got like dizzy
Yeah.
in the because it's virtual reality, but
Sure.
it can play tricks on your mind. And
Yeah.
at one point, I was sort of tempting the fates, right? I was like, okay, if I push against the spacecraft and I spin off, into space, I just keep floating and space is just whirling around,
Yes.
right?
Wow.
And then, it was very strange. Like
Now-
I couldn't do it for very long, but
Imagine
it was
if
cool.
you had somebody who captured you and that was your torture and they kept you in that thing and the only way you could get
I
out is by
know.
going to sleep.
I know that
You'd
would
be like, what?
I don't know that that might be talk about something that could lead to well-being could also lead
Yeah.
to my misery, right? So
man.
like, that would be bad. Yeah.
Enough of anything. You had enough. So that's the other
It's
thing
so true, man.
I heard
Yeah.
about when they say about, people are afraid to die and life versus death. And they said, you know, when you go to a really great party, you're like, yeah, and they're like, imagine you never could leave. And you'd be like, oh,
I think you're
the
right.
music, after a
music.
while, you'd be like, can it just stop? Can you everyone just chill out?
You're so right. It's like everything does come to an end, and you can only take so much of a thing or an event.
Yeah.
And it's like the brain, the mind, you need that change. It's part of nature.
You
I
need
guess.
like almost
So-
the nothing again. You're just like,
Yeah,
I just
yes.
want peace and quiet.
Right?
You know?
Yeah. Like, I want to go to the party that never stops. I mean, we probably have all said it to varying degrees, but not really.
I would assume if you had no issues with your energy levels and your cognitive ability, perhaps that could be great. But as a human, you fatigue, you get tired. Like that's what gets you. Then you're just like that.
Yeah.
Turn it all off. Turn
Yeah.
it off. But if you could keep that
it's
first
true, man.
1 hour infinitively, like I don't even know what that would be like. I guess that's what they speak of as heaven, right? Where you're just like
I
you don't
guess
get
so.
tired, you're just like, all right.
You could keep going forever. You're in a kind of eternal flow state if you want to go that far. Versus we tend to fatigue. I know I'm at parties. I very much enjoy going out socializing.
Sure.
But I hit a limit. And then it's like I
5 a.m. You're like,
thinking.
You're like, oh my God, it's 5 o'clock in the morning.
5 in the morning. It's like, oh, I gotta go to work.
If Infinity was like you fresh out the shower, just dressed, and had eaten a little bit before you went, and it was like 9:30 p.m. You're like, oh, this is the best. 9:30 to like 1 a.m. You're like, oh.
Yeah, you're at like peak social. You're at peak socializing ability and skill. You're on your game.
All of a sudden,
got it all together.
2 o'clock hits.
Yeah.
People start leaving. You're like,
Oh yeah, it's like, oh man. And then you're sitting there like, oh darn, I'm still alone. No, I'm just kidding. I don't know what that's like.
And then to go with this episode, sometimes you just say, I'm not going out, and then you stay in your pajamas and you get comfortable and you put on a movie that you love, and you're like, what a great idea.
Sometimes it's
letting go of
wonderful. Like you just stay indoors.
That's it. Look out the window. You're like, oh yeah, it's already 9 o'clock. Oh, okay.
Success.
Sweet.
In a society in which status is an ultimate concern, everyone wants to be at the top. Not because it's necessarily the best place to be, but because we have collectively decided that high status is preferable and low status is horrible. This also comes with a collective pursuit of the former.
I love looking at European cities. They make
me too. I was gonna say this is a
collective
nice looking city right here.
To the latter. But the tallest trees catch the most wind. And when we are at the top, it takes a tremendous amount of effort to stay there. because everyone wants to take your position. It's stressful compared to the lower regions, in which one lives more privately with less competition, less enemies, and in general, less effort. The other extreme, however, is a place of deprivation. If we deliberately seek the absolute bottom, we become ascetics. Although in a different way, there's still a strong attachment, the attachment to deprivation. The question we can ask ourselves is, what do we truly need? Zhuangzi observed that a bird that nests in the forest wants no more than one branch, and that a mouse that drinks from the pond drinks no more than a belly full. So if we aim for what we need and let go of excess, we prevent possessions from becoming our prison cell, which allows us to travel light.
That's very good.
Epicurus observed as well that the basic necessities for life are easy to come by, and that living moderately is the key to happiness. It's a path that's easy and sustainable. As
I would say, as if you can get like this around the age of
Greek wisdom.
like 16 or so, and like, I don't know, it's better.
Yeah.
This philosophy is much better when you're starting out, to be able to not be overly materialistic, save your money, be conservative, also be, you know, it's like, but it seems like the wisdom comes later, not early, unless you have a community or a culture or a country that is that way and you become that way. But in the West, it's like difficult because credit cards, well, you know, you want that PS5, you can have that PS5.
You can
know
have
what I mean?
it.
You want that new iPhone,
You're
you can have that new iPhone.
Yeah.
And it's really, really pushed. So I think being in the West is challenging to be this way. Young, hard. It's harder.
I
Get
think you're
older,
right. I
maybe.
mean, if you don't know how things work, or if you're not responsible, or maybe a little of both, because hey, you know, we've all been young and
you want what you
probably
want.
have done some dumb things.
Yeah.
You know, you can get that PS5, you can get that new car, and you can be in debt up to your eyeballs doing it, but I'll worry about that tomorrow. But it turns out that's going to eat away at you anyway.
Here's the thing, though, right?
Better to live a middle path.
Think about it this way. So say you're dying, and you rack up all, you don't care about your body you leave behind. This is a dark kind of thought, but you could just say you're like, okay, he gave me 5 years, and you just racked up your cards, and then you went on vacations, and then you died. They can't do anything to you, and unfortunately, the people who knew you or loved you have to deal with it. But like, I'm sure it happens that people fear that, and they probably go on a trip to Paris and do all kinds of stuff, and they're like, well, they can't get me anyway, you know.
Yeah, there's somebody out there who, I'm more than somebody, right? There are people out there who are like, oh, whatever, I'll just rack up the, you know, you can't take it with you. I've heard
because you're
dead.
dead.
And it's true. You're dead. Like you can't. Like it's not coming with you. The physical world.
If you
isn't.
personally have $300,000 in credit card debt and you're dead, and you have no next of kin or whatever, good luck. Well,
at that point, they're probably not gonna. Yeah, what are they gonna get? I mean,
can't take anything.
Whatever asset you had, but then if you're in that much debt,
nothing.
Yes, you don't really have anything.
Talk about letting go. You're just like, I'm gonna get all I want, and then you're beat. You know. And that's that. I think it happens a lot. I do.
Yeah. As Lao Tzu wrote, those who use moderation are already on the path to the Tao. End quote.
Yeah, already to the Tao. That was a great video. But yeah, I mean,
I like that very much. Yeah.
I very much want to be more about peace and all that, but I do find that the world is and as you get older, it challenges you constantly, and as you know, physically and mentally, and then obviously, let's be honest, we're all going to get older. We're talking like 70. You're not in as good a fighting shape as you once were before, and you're more at the mercy of the world.
It's true.
And regardless,
you
know, it's hard to get there and be like, come on. Perfect marriage, all this money, you saved you got, I mean, I don't think you can get all that. I don't know.
I think we have to remember too, like we're all on different journeys of sorts, and part of that journey is this realization. I mean, if you can realize a lot of these, and these are very wise ideas, earlier in life, you know, the earlier the better, great, but sometimes I think you have to experience some of the, you know, the experience will stay with you. So if I experience so call it the rat race, I'll have this high status and I get all this wind at like the tallest trees. And And then maybe then I'll that video I watched on YouTube on MetaBullet was right. I probably shouldn't have, but at least now I know. All right, I can
Yeah.
warn others who are willing to listen, right?
Well,
But yeah,
regardless of how much you do,
yeah,
you will be forgotten eventually.
it's true.
Unless
It's true. I've said that. Mhm.
you're used, such as like Einstein and stuff like that, as a benchmark for comparison. That's probably about
Right.
the best you can become. And then the problem with that is you can be misconstrued. And Alexander the Great, I'm sure somebody didn't think he was great. I'm sure when he conquered somewhere,
Oh yeah,
they
back
probably
then?
were like,
Yeah,
what a
probably
horrible
not.
person. He destroyed a village and killed families and all, but he eventually became great. And even in time, those things will be forgotten as well. We're supposed to be on the 7th iteration of humanity. I watched some of that woo-woo stuff. Atlantis
right,
was like
right.
the 5th and da-da-da-da.
Mhm.
It's just sometimes I think that way, and I guess it is depressing. Just to realize that as hard as you try, man, you're going to disappear one day. And everything that we have done as humanity will probably eventually disappear as well.
It can be. I find it can be depressing. Yes, it's true. I think about that a lot. I've often said to friends who probably think I'm crazy. I call it the right to be forgotten, in a sense that I've come to try to accept, or I'm working on, that one day that will happen, and it's somewhat liberating at the same time. I can go and, not go out and just be cruel to everything around me. Oh, no one's gonna care.
Yeah.
People do care.
Yeah.
My friends, my family, people
Yeah.
who know me.
Yeah.
They'll remember me well, but eventually over time,
Yeah.
unless I am like Einstein, I don't think I am, that
Yeah.
memory will fade. And that's I guess the natural order of things, right? And then
So-
the entire humanity might fade and the universe will go into heat death, and then what?
But like, here's
So,
my
we're going
question.
way out, but
Here's my question, and I'll drop the summary on it. Why do we even do what we do? Why is it even important? Was it
question.
even worth it? Like what? So I sit around and I contemplate about how to be a better person, a better father, and all this. And I guess it feels right, and that's why I like to do it. But
yeah,
is it all just gonna be nothing? Is all of it just nothing? Is because people talk about God and spirituality. Is there really a thing over there? Is there a higher consciousness that has existed with us and that was with us and that is important and that there is a different part and this is a super complex thing that is happening with the universe and God and time and space and anti-gravity and subatomic particles? Are we really like in a sea of the universe? And we are just like this like ant compared to some sort of higher being that is just so astronomically older and more sophisticated than us? Because it's confusing when you walk around. There's all these religions and people die for it. And then you got to get a job and then you have to survive. But eventually you'll be dead. I mean, come on. It's a lot.
I look at it. I try to. I know.
It's a lot. It's a lot.
It's a lot to take in. I look at the different religions we have on Earth, let's say in human land, and I think, well, okay, it's something like different languages, but they're all kind of
saying the same thing.
Stories that say roughly very similar things in different ways. I mean, and there's variations on what they do to your welfare as a person, to your mental state, But leaving all that aside for a second. What I can say, if this was a universe full of rocks and there was no consciousness whatsoever, if you could imagine that, what's the point, right? But we are conscious. We're aware. I think that conscious experience and the contents of that consciousness do matter.
Yeah.
At very least in that moment.
Yeah.
And so it does matter what we do in that moment. Yes, I may be forgotten. Maybe I will reincarnate as something else. Maybe God will give me the punchline at the end, and I'll get to, or maybe not, right? But either way, I know that depending on what someone believes or doesn't, I can say, at least with some degree of whatever confidence I have, that consciousness and the conscious experience matter. Because I mean, if that doesn't matter, then what? Yeah. What is the point? But we are here, and we're here now.
What would all this be here for? What would this extremely, it's amazing. Even if you get down there like our fingers, our thumbs, like just
Isn't
the
it something?
thumb
though?
alone
Yeah.
is a pretty incredible thing. This
The
television
opposable
behind me,
thumb.
the electricity on
Yeah.
me, the strokes of my creativity on the wall over there.
Look at what we've done. Yeah,
you know,
behind
it's
you.
like-
yeah.
Here's the deal. I'm a Virgo.
Great, right?
I'm talented in many things. I'm not a super wealthy man. Usually the talents don't often lead to tons of money. Not cool. But what I'm trying to say is that I
Great
have,
dilemma.
as a Virgo, and as a I'm pretty inquisitive, pretty, it just seems natural for me. Our instincts are usually pretty good. And my instinct was always to just try to have some karma in my life. And that was instinctual to me at a very young age, regardless of how many times I was defeated or hit or knocked down or felt great or had someone I had a great friendship with. It just seemed to me at an unexplained level that it was important for me to try to be more good and nice than to be mean, petty, aggressive, vicious, aggressive, violent. It just always seemed important to go more towards the light, the good, the clean. I call it clean. That's what I like to call it. And
okay. Yeah. Okay.
that was in me since I was little, and it's just like I feel on a very like personal level that it is real. There is a lot going on here.
I think there is. Yeah. I think and I'm gonna say this. I try not to sound naive, and I don't think it is, but in a condition of regularity, the standard normal distribution of personalities and so forth, if you take the population of humanity, there is something innate in us that we're social beings. So we kind of at some level know that I get what I give. I'll get back what I give to this world.
Yeah.
If I give out some good vibes, in general, I'll get good things back.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like 1-to-1. I don't think it's that,
Right.
So I think a lot of our spiritual beliefs and then a lot of our ethics and, as you go even through the Enlightenment and so forth and up to the modern day, we're still trying to keep that going in different ways.
Sure.
To say, what you do in the world does matter.
Yeah.
If not, maybe billions of years from now, maybe at some level, it certainly matters now. And that's important. So, do the best you can.
Modern day, they would equate it into, they would say there's a global consciousness and that we're going into the age of Aquarius, and that is the
age of Aquarius
that is more,
by the way.
things change and things become more, like there's a certain a level, where things change and transcends, and then it becomes a different world and a different way of life. And I recommend to anybody, if you want to be more profound, your worldview. Okay, so for people don't know what a worldview is, it's the way you see the world from your environment, the way you grew up, and everything. Expand your worldview to not only think of this world as a human experience, because it just isn't. It just isn't. There's probably 1 million species. I don't know. There's quite a bit, bro. There's so much. Think of them as well, and then do start to think of like the trees and the way the water works and how the whole functions. And that is what makes me more believe in something divine and beautiful.
It's phenomenal when I sit and I think about that for a second, Eve, the water and the trees, the fact that we're here, the fact that we're on this little rock, that I'm conscious, and a lot of other things on this rock in the backward corner of space are conscious, and we're having an experience. It's like we're experiencing ourselves and the cosmos or whatnot. And it's phenomenal. And I think a lot of people, throughout the ages, I too wonder, like, who am I and why am I here?
Yeah.
And it's just we're so creative as people in general. I mean, you're certainly creative, and
thank you. Yeah.
It's just phenomenal how it works. And I wonder, you're left wondering, like, surely, maybe something set this in motion. Is this all random? Is it? But I like to believe that, when I look at other people, it feels like this. I'm not saying it's true or not, but it does feel like there's an element of the divine connecting us. There's something more. There's something.
And here's the real kicker, going back to what the segment is that all those words we said, all those profound pictures we painted, to let it all go, seems to be when you gain more than when you sit there and try to figure all that out. And how, I mean, come on.
Well said. Well said. Yeah, you can. I mean, there's nothing wrong with thinking about it, but I'm not destroying brain cells over it either.
Yeah.
I do kind of come to the conclusion, well, you know what? Sometimes just sitting, and I was over the weekend listening to birds in my backyard.
Yep.
And it's just,
nice.
I'm listening to so many different sounds of birds just right here.
Took the
in,
moment to
Philadelphia.
unplug your analytical mind, and just experience what was around you.
Yeah, just birds and someone mowing his lawn, down the way.
That's what gets me though,
right?
is the way the show is, this episode is, the energy I go to put in, the time you join to speak on, and it's so great to paint large pictures, but then you get to the fundamentals of Taoism and you start to realize that less is more, and that being clearing your mind somehow puts you in touch with what's within you, and that seems to be what is divine.
Yeah, it does feel that way, right? It feels like a very divine sort of sublime. You're really in that moment and nothing else, just whatever's around you in that time. And I'm using the birds in the backyard example, but it could be anything almost. It's just amazing.
There's something I'll say on camera that I've thought about a lot, and this video has helped me to do it. It's just like, I often wonder, damn, I forgot what I was going to say. So like I was going to say, I get in these meditative states, and they feel really good, and it happens every time, man. I get deep in there, I start to breathe right, and I'm like, you're going to go too deep in here, and you need to leave now. So like I'll spend an hour on meditation, and boy, that's like the best, because I fully commit it, and then I'll be like, well, you wasted an hour, you did this, you did that, but I just can't allow myself to just keep going with it, because I can't surrender. It just seems like I just want to absolutely just be able to just stop that. Just why is the guilt there? Why am I afraid to see who I am if I kept going?
Yeah, I kind of do too. Like I want to keep in the state. I wonder though if perhaps maybe I don't want to sound like I'm making an excuse because I've been in this exact same boat or something very similar, and maybe that is part of it too. Is where, well, okay, look, if I'm feeling this urge, for whatever reason, to get up, I've done my time in meditation, feeling this urge, okay, I'm going to get up and, quote, do something, anything.
Yeah, right.
Maybe it is just time to do that thing, and that's it.
I know
maybe I'm making an excuse.
Well, you know what annoys me about it? You're right, but then I'll be like, there's a thing I should do, and then I'll go look in the refrigerator for 2 minutes, I'll look at my phone for 5 minutes, and then I start doing all this like weird, like non-focused things, and I'm like, you probably should have focused 20 more minutes on what you were doing, because that was a lot more.
It's like I was this close to enlightenment. And then I got hungry,
and then I said, "Let me go upstairs and see what this is doing." And it's like that's what I get annoyed with,
Yeah, no, I feel your pain. I definitely have been there too, and I'll catch myself an hour later, and I'm like, man, I've been on my phone for an hour, and it wasn't like I was reading any interesting articles. I was literally just staring
vegetating.
At my
I guess it's important too,
whatever,
but I'm like. You could have just stayed focused. You could have just kept going.
I know, right?
I
swear I was this close.
Yeah, and that's what I get a lot.
What
would have happened if you would have went there? If you would have kept your mind clear?
Right.
Like, I'll say it real quick. It's so funny. I was doing this the other day, right? Where we're describing where you get in a certain zone, and I was in a dark room, and then I'm observing my thoughts, and then I was like. I'm like, there's probably like a shadow person or something standing in front of you, because it was a dark room, and I'm getting the dark room feeling, like you don't know, maybe there's somebody in your closet. It kept being in my head anymore. And it was destroying my peace. And I had to look. I'm like, why don't you just keep closing your eyes until the thought passes? And I'm like, I can't. I have to look. And then I looked, and it was so weird because I was giving myself this fear of something that wasn't there.
Right.
How weird.
You're aware of it. I think that's sort of the key to it, right? You're aware of what happened. I kind of created that fear myself.
I did.
I just had that yesterday. I was meditating in the morning, and I hear this movement above me as someone moving furniture or something, and I had this moment where it's, oh my God, is my roof gonna collapse? And so I remember looking up and thinking, no, it's the same sound of people moving a
It's
chair
fear.
that I've probably heard when I created it. It was just it's my own creation, and I feel like, okay, that's a step in the right direction. You know, I'm aware of what happened.
Yeah.
It's not like, why did I do that? It's like I created that fear, and I can, you know, do with it what I will, I guess.
Yeah. Well, the
I
sad
have to
part
look up
was
what I did.
I stopped.
Yeah.
I stopped. It broke my
Yeah,
concentration.
it does. It
and then I
does.
just went and played with my phone, and I didn't think about any of that thought anymore. I wasn't worried about the closet.
Yeah, then it's gone, right?
Because it was
Yeah.
my eyes
Yeah.
were closed and I was surrendering, and there was something in my brain that was sabotaging me from going further. And that's what I get annoyed with.
I know.
You
I know.
know?
I'm with you there. I feel I've been there too, and it's frustrating. It can be frustrating if I dwell on it for a little bit. It's like, oh, come on, man.
Yeah.
Hey, one day I'll break through. I promise.
I think we do, and we get further, but we don't give ourselves enough credit, and I don't know.
Yeah,
It's,
yeah. We have to be
it's-
softer with ourselves in a way.
It
too.
was this is a long episode, but if I enjoy them, they go as long as they go. I don't care. That was cool.
Word.
It was cool because it's almost
I
like
like that.
it's you get on different ideas and you express yourself than I do, and you give me an idea. So I like that.
Yeah.
I like
Me
that.
too. Me too. These conversations.
This
are
is
great.
the up there with our other the ayahuasca episode. So I was
Yeah,
cool.
yeah,
I don't
just
know.
going up there.
I enjoyed it. I thought it was fun.
Me too. Good stuff.
And with that, we're out.